The morning was still wrapped in darkness. The city of Los Angeles slept under a soft blue haze. But in a quiet glass-walled home at the edge of the Hollywood Hills, a silent war had already begun. Not a war with guns or noise, but a war with the mind. The alarm on a sleek titanium phone went off. A subtle, minimal chime. One that didn't scream, but whispered a challenge. Most people would snooze. Most people would pull the blanket tighter. But not him. Elon Musk opened his eyes. No hesitation. No excuses. Just breath. One deep inhale, and he sat up in bed like a soldier hearing the call to arms. His room was minimal white walls, no clutter, no distractions. A single black and white photo of a rocket launch hung on the wall. Nothing else. This wasn't a man interested in comfort. He was obsessed with clarity. He didn't speak. He didn't touch his phone. No scrolling. No emails. No noise from the outside world. The world could wait. This was his hour. He stood barefoot on the cold marble floor and walked to the bathroom. The lights flicked on softly, like sunrise itself was entering the room. He stared in the mirror, not at his reflection but through it, as if he was looking at the version of himself he still hadn't become. The version that was waiting on the other side of more discipline, more vision, more sacrifice. He splashed cold water on his face 3 times. Sharp. Intentional. He breathed deeply, then whispered something that only he could hear. No one's coming to save you. Build it anyway. Then the routine began. 10 push-ups. 10 sit-ups. Not for fitness but for fire. It wasn't about body. It was about control. If you can control your body when your mind is tired, you can control anything. Then the journal. He sat by the floor-to-ceiling window as Los Angeles still slept under the stars. In a leather-bound notebook, he wrote just 3 things. What must I build today? Who can I serve better? Why do I still care? No poetry. No fluff. Just raw thoughts. This was his mental calibration. He believed thoughts were tools, not toys. Elon's morning wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. There were no influencers recording their smoothie bowls. No ice baths for the camera. No biohacking for likes. His routine was something else. It was war strategy. At exactly a.m., the coffee machine clicked on. 1 espresso. Black. No sugar. No cream. Nothing to comfort the weak parts of him. Every drop had a purpose. He walked to his workspacious stark glass room with blueprints, sketches, and a single glowing screen. He didn't check notifications. He didn't reply to emails. He wrote. Not code. Not emails. He wrote ideas. Ideas that could collapse or transform industries. Ideas for rockets, AI, global internet, clean energy. Ideas most people would forget by sunrise. He once said, if you spend your morning reacting, you'll spend your life following. So he built. Before he reacted. Somewhere across the city, a man hit snooze for the 3rd time. Somewhere else, a young woman scrolled Instagram under her blankets. And far away, a teenage boy muttered, "I'll start tomorrow," as he turned off his alarm. But Elon was already in the 3rd phase of his morning study. He read. Not news. Not gossip. But technical papers, engineering journals, military strategies, biographies of wartime CEOs. He wasn't just building rockets. He was building himself layer by layer, hour by hour. And the secret? This wasn't about becoming Elon Musk. This was about becoming the man the world needed Elon to be. The one who wouldn't quit when rockets exploded. The one who would keep building even when the banks closed the doors. The one who would work hours straight while his heroes retired. This routine wasn't optional. It was survival. And as the sun began to kiss the edges of the skyline, he finally looked up. The world was waking up. But he had already been alive. For hours. Because when you're building the future, you don't wait for the world to wake up. You wake up the world. The sun had begun to rise over Los Angeles. Orange hues painted the glass walls of Elon's minimalist office. While most of the city was yawning into reality, Elon Musk was already pacing silently, eyes locked on a whiteboard smeared with equations, sketches, and timelines. He didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a man solving something urgent. Because to him, every morning was a countdown. Not to a meeting, not to a press release, but to the future. At a.m., he opened a video file not for entertainment, but training. A recording of a failed rocket launch from 2 years ago. Slow motion. Frame by frame. He analyzed each second. The angle of the fins. The delay in thrust. The microsecond. that turned $1 million into a cloud of fire. Most people look away from their failures. He rewatches his again and again, not to punish himself, but to understand. Because failure is feedback and feedback is fuel. By AM, he was on a Zoom call, not with executives or PR teams, but with a year-old aerospace engineer from Estonia who had emailed him a wild idea for engine cooling. "Show me the math," Elon said without hello. The young man stuttered, shocked to even be on the call. Elon didn't care about formality. He cared about function. And he had one rule. If the idea is good, we move fast. He wasn't building a company. He was racing against time. Because while most people dreamed about the weekend, Elon was thinking about Mars, artificial intelligence, and the fate of the human species. To him, every wasted minute could cost a century. After the call, he scribbled in his notebook again. Speed is survival, but clarity is power. He closed the book, stood up, and walked to the balcony. The city was finally awake now. Horns, traffic, helicopters. But Elon didn't even flinch. He wasn't focused on what the world was. He was focused on what the world could be. Downstairs, his sons were having breakfast. Laughter, cereal bowls, morning cartoons. He stepped in quietly, smiled, kissed each one on the forehead, and asked them a question he asked every morning. "What are you curious about today?" Not "how are you?" Not "did you sleep well?" But "what are you curious about?" Because he believed. The most dangerous thing a child could lose was their sense of wonder. He listened as his youngest asked about robots, and the other talked about energy and space. He answered simply, not like a billionaire genius, but like a dad with a mission to spark something eternal. Then he left. No chauffeur, no assistant running beside him, just a Tesla Model S, and the hum of ideas louder than the city's chaos. As he drove through the hills, he watched people rushing coffee in one hand, regret in the other. People chasing jobs they hated, checking notifications they didn't need, scrolling through lives that weren't theirs. But Elon wasn't running from anything. He was running toward something no one else could see. He reached the SpaceX headquarters. By AM sharp. Inside, engineers, welders, coders, and scientists were already at work. But when he walked in, there was no announcement, no fanfare. He didn't believe in titles. He believed in execution. Within minutes, he was under a rocket prototype with a flashlight, his suit jacket off, asking an intern why the oxidizer valve was off-center by 2 millimeters. The intern trembled. "Did you double-check the blueprint?" "I thought it was within margin." "Thinking isn't checking," Elon replied calmly. Then he didn't yell. He didn't shame. He showed. He walked the intern through the system himself. Why a 2 millimeter error could cause a spin. Why close enough was never good enough when you're flying humans into the void. Because his morning routine never ended at AM. It followed him into every moment of the day. Relentless precision. Disciplined mind. Servant of the future. As the factory buzzed around him, Elon grabbed a wrench and tightened apart himself. A billionaire with calloused hands and dark circles under his eyes. Why? Because he didn't build his life to escape work. He built his life so he could work on what matters. And while the world looked at him like he was obsessed, he simply knew something they didn't. Comfort is a slow death. Greatness is forged in discomfort. That was his real morning routine. Not the espresso, not the cold water, but the daily choice to suffer voluntarily so others won't have to suffer involuntarily later. To suffer for humanity's leap forward. To suffer in service of a mission no one else would dare touch. And so, as others posted selfies and shared quotes about grind culture, Elon quietly walked back to his desk. Another day had begun, but for him, the real work had already been done. He had already won the morning, because he had remembered who he was and why he started. It was now past noon, and while most of the world began shifting gears into their midday slump-checking lunch menus, scrolling through social media, or watching the clock tick toward the end of their shift, Elon Musk's energy was only increasing. Not because he drank more coffee, not because he had better genetics, but because he had one thing that most people never take the time to develop, a reason that burns hotter than fatigue. Back in his glass-walled office at SpaceX, the team had left a report on his desk, pages of technical data, simulations, and proposals. Elon didn't skim it. He dove in. He believed speed without understanding was chaos. His eyes scanned line by line like a machine, but his mind was alive like fire. Each sentence sparked new ideas, new risks, new angles. And then without warning grabbed a red marker, and started rewriting the calculations. His engineers were used to it by now. They knew that while most CEOs delegated hard thinking, Elon did the opposite. He ran toward complexity. He didn't just want answers. He wanted to understand the math behind the miracle. By p.m., a junior engineer knocked gently on his door with news. A delay in one of the Falcon launches. A sensor failure. It wasn't critical, but the protocol was to report it. Elon turned slowly, face unreadable. How long will it take to redesign the component? Maybe 3 weeks, sir, the engineer said. Maybe more. Silence. Then Musk asked, what if you had to solve it in hours? What would break first, your ego or your schedule? The engineer looked stunned. But Elon wasn't trying to intimidate. He was trying to stretch reality. He believed that most deadlines were just excuses wrapped in calendars. He wasn't interested in what was reasonable. He was interested in what was necessary. Because if astronauts were trusting him with their lives, if colonizing Mars was the goal, then maybe 3 weeks wasn't an option. After the engineer left, Elon went back to his whiteboard. He redrew the launch path himself, wiping the board clean 6 times until the new calculations made sense. Not because he didn't trust his team, but because vision must be seen before it's shared. The whiteboard, now filled with scribbled math and sketches, looked like madness to anyone else. But to Elon, it was a roadmap to tomorrow. Then something strange happened. He paused. He stared at one particular equation and whispered, almost to himself, "We're still too slow." That one sentence would later turn into a AM team call, a redesigned engine model, and a month acceleration in the Mars schedule. But in that moment, it was just one man, one formula, and one fire that refused to go out. Around p.m., he finally looked up. His assistant had left a reminder on the screen. Lunch? Elon blinked. He hadn't eaten. Again. Most days, he forgot. Not because he was starving himself, but because food wasn't the focus. Fuel was fuel. He grabbed a small tray, some grilled chicken, a few vegetables, and ate while reading a paper on neural interfaces. No small talk. No fancy lunch meetings. Just hunger for knowledge greater than hunger for food. Outside, the California sun was blazing. Now, cars zoomed. People lounged in cafes. The world was moving, but at a speed Elon had outgrown long ago. He checked the time. PM time for Tesla. He didn't take breaks. He switched missions. Most people spent their energy on one job and collapsed afterward. Elon had 3 full-time missions. SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, and if you counted fatherhood. 4. How? Not by being superhuman, but by being super clear. Clarity of purpose is the greatest energy source in the world. He arrived at Tesla's design center minutes later. His first move wasn't to head into a boardroom. He went straight to the factory floor. Machinery whirred. Sparks flew. Workers moved with precision. But Elon wasn't watching. He was listening. Listening for errors, bottlenecks, hesitations. Every second wasted on that floor was a chain reaction in production. He stepped up to a robotic arm that was assembling the Model Y frame. It paused for seconds too long between cycles. Why's that pause there? He asked. The floor manager hesitated. It's within tolerance. Elon shook his head. Tolerance isn't excellence. Then he bent down and inspected the sensor angle himself. He didn't care if people called him a micromanager. He wasn't managing. He was optimizing a future no one else could see. A few feet away, a young designer was modeling a new dashboard for the Cybertruck. Elon walked over, eyes scanning the CAD model. Looks good, he said, but what's the drag coefficient? About. Not good enough. He drew a sharper line across the screen with his finger. Don't design for cool. Design for speed and survival. And just like that, a dollar redesign was triggered. Not because Elon wanted to be difficult, but because Elon believed every detail matters when you're trying to bend time itself. This was an obsession. This was war against mediocrity. And he was winning not because he worked more hours, but because every hour was aligned with something most people had never tasted. A vision big enough to make pain irrelevant. Evening began to fall over California. The sun dipped low behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the Tesla design studio. Most of the staff were packing up. Laptops closed. Jackets pulled on. One by one, lights flickered off as people clocked out and returned to their lives. But Elon Musk was still there alone in the glass-walled prototype room, staring at a blueprint on the table like it was a map to another universe. To him, the day wasn't winding down. It was just shifting form. Most people work with a finish line in mind. Elon, he worked like there was no finish line, just another breakthrough waiting on the other side of exhaustion. He grabbed a dry erase marker and began scribbling on the board. Not because someone asked him to, not because it was scheduled, but because an idea wouldn't leave his mind. It had been lingering since a small improvement in Tesla's autonomous lane prediction. Something others thought was fine. He didn't want fine. He wanted flawless. An engineer once told him, Elon, percent accuracy is already industry leading. He looked back and said, yeah, an A% error at miles per hour is the difference between life and death. That was the difference between most companies and Elon Musk. Where others stop at good enough, he starts asking, what's next? He stayed until the last person left the floor. The janitor passed by, offering a nod of respect. Elon smiled slightly, but his mind was still tangled in algorithms and edge case. Data points. At around p.m., his assistant gently reminded him that dinner with his sons was in minutes. This above all never skipped. Because no matter how far his vision stretched into space, his grounding was always his family. He drove himself no security. No convoy to a small house in Bel Air. His sons were waiting with puzzles on the table and questions in their minds. Dinner was simple, quiet, no devices, just connection. And Elon asked each of them, what did you build today? Not what they consumed, not what they memorized, but what they created. Because he believed every great thinker must first be a builder. His son smiled, taking turns explaining a robot they'd tried to make from a Lego kit. Elon listened, truly listened. He wasn't half present. He wasn't distracted. In that moment, he wasn't a billionaire. He was a father planting seeds. Seeds that might grow into scientists, artists, or even future astronauts. After dinner, while his boys played, Elon sat outside under the night sky staring up at the stars with a rare stillness. And for a brief moment, the man who worked hour weeks, who built rockets, electric cars, and brain-computer interfaces, who had the weight of the future pressing on his shoulders, just breathed. But even then, his mind wandered. Not to escape, but to expand. He looked up at Mars. Red, silent, empty. And he whispered under his breath, we're coming. Then he walked back inside, kissed each of his children goodnight, and returned to his desk. It was p.m. The world was sleeping. He was just getting started again. He opened his notebook, same one from the morning, and reviewed his 3 questions. What must I build today? Who can I serve better? Why do I still care? He paused on the third. Why did he still care? He had money. He had fame. He had achieved more than anyone had expected. And yet, he still showed up before dawn. He still worked past midnight. He still challenged every assumption, broke every comfort, and carried missions others deemed impossible. Why? Because some people chase motivation. But Elon, he was powered by mission. Motivation fades, but mission forges men into weapons against time, decay, and complacency. He wrote one final line at the bottom of the page. You don't need more time. You need fewer excuses. And then, quietly, in the stillness of a room lit only by a single desk lamp, he went back to work. No applause, no camera, no quote of the day, just a man of vision and the war to bring it into reality. It was a.m. Most of the world was deep in sleep, dreaming, escaping, or simply unconscious. But in the heart of Los Angeles, in a room humming with the soft sound of servers and scattered paper, Elon Musk was still awake, still building, still becoming. His face was lit only by the soft glow of 3 screens. Each displayed something different. One, a Tesla schematic, another a Starship fuel efficiency simulation, the third a draft of a Neuralink research paper. He wasn't multitasking. He was multi-missioned. His fingers moved fast, but his thoughts moved faster. This was the hour where he did his most dangerous thinking, when the noise of the world was gone, when even doubt was asleep. Only clarity remained. His assistant had texted an hour ago, "Sir, you haven't rested." He didn't reply, not because he was trying to be a martyr, but because rest had a purpose, and he hadn't earned it yet. At a.m., he leaned back in his chair. Not from exhaustion, but reflection. In front of him were 2 folders. One marked launch, the other marked abort. He stared at both. One represented the next big leap toward Mars. The other represented retreat, the safe path, the wait. He picked up the launch folder. He flipped it open. He signed the approval, not because everything was ready, but because waiting for perfect is the slowest form of failure. Elon once told a team member, "If you wait until you're certain, you're already late." That's what set him apart. He didn't fear failure. He feared regret. And so, with eyes red but focused, he locked the decision into place. The SpaceX crew would start assembling the next-gen Starship prototype at dawn. That's how history is made. Not in public speeches, not in viral tweets, but in silent decisions at AM, made by people who are willing to bleed for a better tomorrow. By AM, he finally stood. His body stiff, his eyes tired, but his soul alive. On the wall behind him was a photo of Earth taken from a SpaceX satellite. Underneath, a quote had written long ago, "There is no backup plan for humanity, so don't act like it." He stared at it, then turned off the lights. One by one, the monitors dimmed, but something deeper stayed lit within him. A flame, not of motivation, but of conviction. Because Elon Musk had long outgrown the shallow routines of motivation videos and hype music. He didn't need someone to tell him to keep going. He knew why he must. Because the cost of stopping was far greater than the cost of going too far. He stepped outside. The sky was dark, quiet, and infinite. He looked up again at Mars. Cold, unreachable, waiting. And he whispered again it for the world, but for himself. One day, people will wake up there. Then he got in his car, drove home through empty roads. No traffic, no sound, just the hum of tires on pavement, just the rhythm of vision pulsing in his veins. And as the first light of morning began to kiss the city skyline, he arrived home. Not to sleep, but to journal again. Same notebook, same 3 questions. And this time he answered the third. Why do I still care? His pen moved slowly, intentionally, across the page. Because the future needs builders, not talkers. Because my sons will live in the world I builder, the one I ignore. Because if not me, who? He closed the book, placed it on the desk, and, as the clock struck AM, Elon Musk took a deep breath and began the morning routine all over again. Because while the world sleeps, builders rise. And the future waits for no one.